Welcome to Cosmic Roadmap. I'm your host, Melissa Lambor, Reiki Astro Guide and best-selling author. Have you ever wondered where in the world you should be? This podcast is about bridging cultures and helping the endless wanderer find their purpose and place in the world. Hear stories from digital nomads, avid travelers, and aspiring globetrotters, and learn how they discovered where they were destined to be and build their legacy. If you're curious about astrogeography and where you're meant to be on the planet, go to cosmicroadmap.com to download your free passport to purpose. All right, so welcome to Cosmic Roadmap. I am your guest, Melissa Lambor. My special guest today is Elle Hamilton. She is a self-discovery coach that works with human design, and she can tell you a little bit more about herself. But yeah, we met through Marina Gergis, who is a mutual friend of ours, and yeah, another spiritual nomad on this journey. So I'm grateful that we met on Instagram, and then we finally met in real life here in Bali. So
Yes, I love when the Instagram friendships, DMs, and all of that turns into something real life, a real life connection. So glad to connect.
Exactly. So thank you for being on today. And tell me a little bit about your journey. Like, where did you start with astrogeography? Because you had a astrogeography reading before you came to Bali.
I did.
Yeah. And what revelations did you see in that reading?
So when I learned about astrogeography, it made so much sense as to why I was drawn to certain places. So I didn't really start to learn about it until last year when I was trying to figure out where I wanted to live. Where I knew I wanted to leave the U.S., but I'm like, okay, where do I want to go? I had a couple places in mind, and I went and got a reading, and I realized some of the places that I had in mind maybe weren't the best for like a long-term move, but it might be good for an exploration. But I also learned about how to call in the energy of places that I wanted. But Bali is a place that was high on my list because of my past experience when I learned I had a
Venus line
line there. I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, because it's all about love. And today we looked at your lines, and it was Venus IC, which has to do with ancestral connections. And just in our conversation, you said that people were coming into your life about working with your ancestors in some way. So it makes sense why you're here, because it's all a portal, right? It allows you to amplify like what you're meant to do in these places. And another line that came up was the spirituality line, so the Neptune line. So that one can be a bit heady. You're a Pisces, right?
I'm a
so
Pisces,
you're already.
So I'm like, do I even need any more of that?
Yeah, but it is about tapping into spirituality, ancient practices. So it makes sense that you're here as well, because that's what Bali is about. And where did your journey start? You weren't always, this spiritual nomad or digital nomad. So what was that breaking point, or how did things shift into where you are today?
So I grew up in Cleveland, but even from a young age, I always knew that I was going to live somewhere else. I have a sister who's 16 years older than me. And so she moved to Atlanta when I was in like 4th grade. So my whole basically growing up, I always thought I'm going to move there. I wasn't thinking about energy as a child, but just I knew how I felt when I went there, and I was excited, and I would see things that made me curious, and I felt like I can see myself as an adult living here. But circumstances took me a different way. I ended up moving to Texas, and I had my first corporate job there. And in that job, I went to school, got my bachelor's, and I got a job using my degree. My degree is in fashion merchandising. So I did all the things that you're supposed to do, right? And so in that first job, I remember just being there, and even within the first year of that job, I'm like, this is not for me. I was so unhappy. And it just seemed like I couldn't get anything right. Like, just the way you were supposed to do things a certain way. They needed you to be very outspoken. They needed you to do all these things. And it just didn't seem to fit who I was. So I would judge myself a lot. I'm like, why can't I get this right? Or why can't I, be X, Y, and Z? And so I started to explore other options, like, what would happen if I had a dream of moving to New York to study jewelry design. I'm like, what would happen if I did that? So I told my family, and they're like, no, like, you can't do that. You need to stick with your job. Why would you want to leave a good job? You're making good money there. You have benefits, blah, blah, blah. And so I kind of listened to that for a year. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. I didn't really have the confidence yet to stick to what my intuition was telling me was right for me, until I finally hit a point where I'm like working 60 hours a week, which I know to a lot of people 60 hours is not even a big deal, but for me I was like exhausted and just very unhappy. And so I decided I was depleted. And then also I had an instance at work where I was put on probation. Like I was about to get fired because they're like, you're not performing. But it just wasn't the right role for me. That wasn't the right path for me.
Because you were just dragging yourself through that. And that's how I felt in my engineering career.
I'm like, I can't live up to this, whatever you guys want me to be. And so I actually quit before, like once I got put on probation, I put in my notice and got just like a regular, I had already applied to the jewelry school. I went to FIT. Okay. So I was accepted for that. So I was kind of just waiting, like letting time go by until I can like leave and go move to New York. But I had to quit the job before then because I didn't want to get fired. Who wants to get fired? Yeah. So I went and got a little temp job actually to like hold me over. And I was working a side job, all trying to save money for this big move to New York. So I ended up moving to New York, and the energy there was a lot. Like, again, it's a very busy city. Everyone knows how you're from the East Coast.
I'm from New Jersey, and I was in New York a lot because I was pretty close. And where did you move to? Like Brooklyn?
So I moved to Brooklyn. Okay. Yeah, I moved to Brooklyn, and I learned a lot about myself there. Like, I would say New York was the place that really stretched me. It didn't feel like the place that I would be long term. I always knew I wouldn't live there long term, but I would say New York is the place that made me who I am, in a way, because it pushed me to stop being soft, stop doing what people told me to do. Like, I built up this confidence, like, okay, well, New York rubbed off on me because, like, the people there, like, like, yo, whatever. And I was like, okay. I remember moving there, and I'm like, hi, saying hi to people and smiling, and they're like,
being from the Midwest.
Right. They're like, what you doing? I'm just like, let me get together. So, I would say Brooklyn really got me on the path of becoming more of myself and being comfortable with who I am and just not really caring so much about what other people wanted me to do with my life.
Yeah. I forget what line you have there, but it might be Chiron or like a healing line, but I forget what was running through.
I actually don't remember either. Yeah. I don't think I've ever really looked at my lines over there. I've looked in other places that I've lived, but New York, I was like, that served a purpose. I don't need to know.
Because we looked at LA. That was another place that you were at, and you had Jupiter energy there. But it's Jupiter MC, which is interesting because it almost feels like people from LA or that energy from LA is going to come into your life in the future. So to amplify whatever goals you have in mind. Maybe this, the series or whatever you start creating.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Because one thing I know is the MC line, but when I was living in LA is when I really started to dig deeper into human design. Yeah. And I'm still very connected to the people that I know that live there. So, I mean, that'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, because it's a huge manifestation energy and like luck. Like things just easily start, forming. Yeah. You have an idea and it happens. Mm-hmm. So, very, very interesting. And how did you make your way to Bali? I know we were talking about Costa Rica. That was one of the places. And then, like what set you on this digital nomad journey?
Oh, so I've lived in LA 2 times. So originally I moved there in 2013 after knowing I'm not cut out for living in New York. But at the time I was in the jewelry industry, and the major jewelry manufacturing industries are in New York and LA. So New York was scratched out. So LA was like the next thing. And it had the weather, it had all these things that I thought that would be, fit my personality. And so I eventually decided to leave there because I was ready to quit my other job. I had another corporate trauma story. And so at that time, I'm like, okay, I really want something different for my life. And I set out like, okay, this is how I want my life to be, but I'm going to need flexibility. At that point, I had never even left the country when I was living in LA. I did not leave the country until 2017. So, But in order for me to get that flexibility and kind of change, I needed a little assistance. So my sister said, hey, if you come to Atlanta, you can stay here and, it'll give you the ability to like reset, to like pivot your life. So
Right.
I went there and I started doing freelance work.
Okay.
But I had, support, like, okay, I can stay here for a bit and just get my bearings. So I did that. But the whole goal was getting more flexibility in my life by building this freelance business, location independent business. So I did that. And then that's when I finally left the country and started traveling. But I didn't, of course, immediately just move away. Like, I took some time. But during that time, I was in an interesting relationship. And then that ended. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to finally leave the country for an extended period of time and start to explore myself and really connect with who I am. Mm-hmm. So that relationship turned into a whole self-love, self-discovery journey, which Bali was the very first place that I went to during that time. And I really fell in love with this place and the people that I met here, and just I got the ability to like really sit with myself.
Yeah.
Because it was my first solo trip.
And it makes sense because you have your Venus line and it's all about love, mm-hmm. and it's icy, so it has to do with the past. So it's almost like loving your past, loving your ancestors, mm-hmm. And really tapping into that.
That makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I learned so much about, I just really reconnected with myself, like my authentic self, not who my family wants me to be or who I'm trying to be in this relationship. It was about just me and like, what do I need? What do I want? So this was the first place that I actually did that. And I think this is my 4th time coming to Bali, but every single time I just felt, not that every trip was different because some were solo trips, some I'm going with others, but just the way that I felt here is what has always called me back. And so now I'm making it home because I just love what I do here, what I experience and what I do and the people that I connect with. And it just resonates with who I am and the life that I want to create for myself.
So how is that love energy, that Neptune energy, the spirituality, like rippling into your work? Like, how do you see that?
It's definitely rippling into my work because with me doing the human design and I'm working primarily with women, I'll have like readings with some men, but a lot of people they're newer on their self-discovery journey, and the self-love is a big aspect of that. So they're wanting to know more about themselves, to reconnect with who they are, like authentically, outside of the societal conditioning. But also what I like to do is illuminate what's magical about you. So within their human design chart, I'm like, oh, you have, this gate, you have these things that are in your chart. And it's like, oh, wow, like, I can see myself from a different perspective. I'm not honing in on what's wrong with you or, what these flaws are. I'm like, no, let's focus on what is magical, what's powerful about you, and then take that and apply it to your life in different ways. So I think me being here in Bali, because of the way it's impacting me and my energy, I can pour that into other people through, the one-on-one readings, or if it's through my content. I feel like it gives me this radiance. I don't want to say gives me, but it illuminates my own radiance, and that naturally goes to other people as we interact.
Yeah. And I've noticed also that you started writing, right? More?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely more writing. So,
and poetry, is that, that's something that you haven't done in a while?
Yeah, I did start to write poetry. Actually, when I was living in New York is when the poetry really started, but then I kind of got away from it. But being here in Bali was the first time that I actually shared my poetry in person. And it wasn't something like, oh, hey, let me read my poetry. Someone was like, hey, we need someone to read. You write. Here. I'm like, oh, well, okay.
Not ready, but...
but it was good. Like, not that I needed a push, but me being here is also about just pushing my boundaries and being open. At the beginning of this 2023, I set a goal to be open to possibilities, also to be more audacious, just put myself out there and stop overthinking things or limiting myself by what I believe is. I believe a lot is possible, but I know that there's also room for me to push myself even more. So I'm really appreciative of all these opportunities like that, to just read my poetry. Something simple, but like for me, it was overcoming a fear. A fear of like sharing something that is very emotional for me.
Being seen,
being
seen. Heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Exactly.
So it was good. I feel like a lot of opportunities are coming out of just me being in this space.
And also attracting the people, right? Attracting the community that you need to be creative.
Exactly. So many creatives here, and people just, they're on different parts in their own journey. And then seeing how they kind of, we all connect has been a very beautiful experience too.
Yeah. And where are you stepping forward? I know that you have a few trips coming up, and we looked at your lines there as well, right? Thailand, Vietnam.
So I know for sure I'm going to Thailand next, Bangkok, which is another place that I've been to. This will be my 4th trip to Bangkok. And normally I like to say I'm more of like a tropical weather, palm tree kind of girl, but something about that city just excites me, and the energy there has been I like how I feel. I'm always about, I like how I feel in a place. Like, that matters to me so much. And I think that probably goes back to my human design as well.
Right.
But I just like how I feel there and the people that I meet when I'm there. So I'm looking forward to that trip.
Yeah, you specifically have moon energy there. So I live here on my moon MC line, and you have moon MC in Thailand. So that means that it's more grounding. It makes sense that you did a meditation, right?
Yeah, I did a 10-day Vipassana silent meditation in Thailand, which was such a great experience.
That's all about retreating and like being with yourself. And because it's MC, it's all about future. So future grounding, finding that home in the future. So that may be a possible place that you'll settle down. In that area. Yeah,
because it was definitely a consideration between, if I'm setting up a home base, where would it be? Bali was my first place to come and explore. And I'm like, okay, I think I feel pretty settled here. But I'm also a kind of person that I'm like, never say never.
Exactly.
Like, who knows?
And you can have multiple bases,
exactly.
Right? Yeah. And then the other one is Vietnam. You had some interesting experiences in Vietnam, and you can go as deep as you want. But today was interesting because you were like, I don't want to go to Ho Chi Minh is it Saigon or to...
Yeah, I've been to Hanoi, been to Da Nang, but Ho Chi Minh, I'm like, I didn't want to go there because I thought it would be chaotic.
Exactly.
However, you showed me why I should be open. I know open is my word, but why I should be open to going there, because I have a sun line.
The sun line, yes.
I forget.
Sun AC, so it's all about the self. So really like illuminating the self, like seeing the sun within you. So really seeing that power. It's almost like that solar plexus, like sun within you when you're in that place. So...
And
so shining bright,
right. And I would love to experience more of that, based on the experience that I had before, where things were just happening. It just seemed like a lot of weird things were happening when I was in Vietnam. I knew that, okay, this is a place that I need to go back to at some point to kind of have a redo and figure out why I felt that. Well, I don't even have to figure out why. I think I know why I felt that way before.
But being in more of an alignment with what you're meant to be doing.
Exactly.
Because it was almost a mirror. Like everything that was happening
so
was a mirror.
like during that time when I went there, I was dealing with a lot of internal fear and what was going on in my life, my business. And so reflecting back on that, I'm like, okay, actually what was taking place outside of me was reflecting what was going on. So that makes a lot of sense. And I'm like, why were these things happening?
Yeah.
But now knowing that I have a sun line, I think it was one other.
There was a Mars line, so that's also a fiery energy. So it's all about passion and drive.
Yeah.
So possibly with your career or with romantic relationships, but just really finding that passion and drive within yourself.
Yeah. So I'm definitely going to be open to that because I have a friend who may or may not be moving there. So it'll be good to at least have that familiarity there, but I'll be able to explore the country again with a fresher perspective. So I'm definitely in a different space energetically than I was at that time when I went. That was 2019.
Right.
So
and you were in survival mode at that moment.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how can people work with you? Like how do your sessions usually work? Yeah, as a self-discovery coach, you weave human design, and do you weave any other modalities into your work?
Yeah, so when people are working with me, I have 2 offerings. So it's a human design reading. It's called Illuminate the Muse, and that's when I look at their human design chart, and then they can choose to do a one-on-one call with me to dive even deeper, to get questions answered. But like I said earlier, when I do human design readings, I like to focus on the things that make you unique. And yes, I will share with you like what some challenges may be just for you to be aware of, but then also how do we work with this. So I like to explain things in a way that is easy to actually apply in your day-to-day life. I know a lot of times when people like teach human design, they use a lot of complex esoteric language,
right.
And that's just not who I am. Like, I understand it that way, but if you want people to be able to actually use it, you have to talk to them in a way they can understand. So that's what I like to do. And then I have a new offer that's going to be launching at the end of July, and that's the Muse Within Empowerment Collective. So with that, I want people to, I feel like we get a lot further in our life with our goals and everything when we have people that we can do it with collectively. So we're still looking at human design, like who are you? Who was the muse, like I like to say. But also I'm taking the point of view of what I like to call intuitive lifestyle design, which I think that's how we're living anyway.
Exactly.
You know, we're designing a life that we would love to live, the things that we want to experience, but having our intuition be at the forefront rather than like, okay, logically I'm supposed to do this, or this is what my family is saying is the right way. This is, you know, I'm supposed to follow X, Y, and Z. It's like tapping into yourself and your inner wisdom, that intuition, and saying, okay, what do I want to experience, but what is the right direction for me to take right now? What feels good for me to proceed with in my life?
But actually creating that community, right? That you started building as you were growing, but at an accelerated pace, because it's with intention.
Yes, definitely with intention. And then also being able to share resources with people. So I think sometimes when we have these ideas, you don't really know, not that anyone's telling you what the next step is going to be, but it could be, hey, I remember you said that you wanted to do this. Like, I think this might support you to get that completed.
Right.
So that's a really big aspect of this for me, is being able to share all the resources that I've accumulated over the years of living this lifestyle, and just also the community aspect, that support. Because when you decide to change your life, sometimes you don't have the support of the people who've been with you along the way.
Yeah.
And so I think having this other community of women to have your back is really important.
It is. Yeah, because your friends, your family, they're not your ideal clients.
Exactly.
And getting feedback from them can be sometimes detrimental to your progress.
Because what I found is sometimes, you know, they do it with love, but they may innocently project their fears onto you. So we need another group. These are like your other friends that you just met, but they're going to help you along that way to really just launch this life that you would prefer to experience.
Exactly. And what else is coming up? I know we just recorded something for your upcoming project.
Yes. So my YouTube channel is something that I really want to focus on this year. I have so much to share, so many things that I've learned just in my own studies, things that I'm continuing to study and evolve in, but I want to share more on my YouTube channel. So one of those things is a new series that I'm creating called The Muse Life, which I just interviewed you for. But with that series, it'll be me having these conversations with women who have chosen a different path in their own lives, and sharing, you know, what was your point A to point B or C or whatever. How did you get there? What was that experience like? Because I think we all need expanders in our life. So if you're in a position in your life and it's not quite where you want to be, sometimes it's hard to know what are the other possibilities out there. So to see people who are living their lives in a unique way, I think that'll help you expand your mind as to what is possible. So that's what the series is all about.
And inspire, others to be in our shoes, right?
Exactly.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you.
And remember, lineage goes beyond your ancestors. You are meant to connect to the cosmos, so you may finally find your cosmic family. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to Cosmic Roadmap. If you would like to book a session with me to explore your own cosmic roadmap and chart your next destination in business, love, and life, then head over to cosmicroadmap.com.